When Pablo Picasso died in 1973, his wife wouldn't allow their grandson Pablito attend the funeral. Little Pablito responded by drinking a bottle of bleach, which damaged his organs so badly that he couldn't eat anymore. After 3 months of suffering, he died. Lake Nyos in Cameroon periodically releases a cloud of invisible carbon dioxide that suffocates everything within a 16-mile radius. In 1986, 1,700 people and all of their livestock suddenly died without even understanding what was happening to them. In 1949, Timothy Evans was wrongly executed for murdering his wife and daughter. The actual murderer, John Christie, was a prosecution witness at Evans's trial. After Evans was executed, Christie went on to kill 4 more people. The government didn't acknowledge that Evans was innocent until 2004. Tom Block is a U.S. Army veteran who took a suicide vest to the face during a mission in Afghanistan. After countless surgeries and learning how to walk again, he is now helping federal law enforcement hunt down pedophiles. He hopes that one day the Captain America shield in his eye will be a symbol that children are safe. A cafe in Japan is hiring paralyzed people to control robot servers so that they can still make an income. An 8-year-old girl once found a 4-leaf clover and gave it to her daddy for good luck. When her father died, she found out he'd been keeping it in his pocket every day for 20 years. When the story of a 5-year-old boy fighting a rare type of cancer went viral in the UK, nearly 5,000 people stood in line for hours in the rain to see if they could be a stem cell donor. Eventually, they found one person who was the perfect match. In case you plan on visiting North Korea, some of these crazy laws might make you think twice. Prioritizing anything over Kim's family is considered blasphemy. A mother recently faced jail time for trying to save her children instead of a portrait of the former president during a fire. Watching porn or reading the Bible are both crimes punishable by death in North Korea. Kim Jong-un released a list of haircuts that people in the country are allowed to have. There are 28 state-approved hairstyles that people can keep, otherwise they can expect jail time. Citizens are also forbidden from having the same name as the current president. So when Kim Jong-un took office in 2012, everyone named Kim was forced to change their name. Falling asleep while Kim speaks will fetch you a serious capital punishment. In 2015, the former defense minister was executed with an anti-aircraft gun after doing so. But hey, they got legal weed, so I mean... Within the walls of Alcatraz, Al Capone's brain completely melted due to untreated neurosyphilis. It got to the point where he would throw his feces at the other inmates and was paroled early because he was deemed too much of a lost cause to be a threat. When he died at the age of 48, he had the mental capacity of a 12-year-old. While Charles Darwin is famous for his work on evolution, he also killed and tasted every species of animal that he discovered. As many as 3 U.S. presidents, as well as Abe Lincoln's son, likely died as a result of contaminated water in the White House. Until 1850, there was no sewage system and a field of human excrement called night soil flowed freely into the water supply. In 1996, a man's body floated up to a boat in the UK seas. There was no identification on the body except for a 25-year-old Rolex Oyster on his wrist. As Rolex maintained such meticulous service records, they were able to identify the victim and ultimately the killer. On average, men receive 63% longer sentences than females for the exact same crime. Nigerian scammers once sold a fake airport to a major international bank for $242 million. The scam wasn't discovered until 3 years later. Portugal decriminalized all drugs 20 years ago and has viewed addiction as a public health crisis rather than a crime. Ever since then, Portugal has had one of the lowest percentages of drug addicts in all of Europe. In 1932, Australia declared war on about 20,000 emus that were destroying farmland. While a number of birds were killed, the emu population persisted and ended up winning the war. Switzerland's military has remained neutral since 1815, but the entire country is rigged to explode. Thousands of demolition points are wired into bridges, highways, and railroads across the nation to quickly halt invaders. During World War II, German tank drivers in Africa would drive over camel poop for good luck. The Allies caught wind of this and responded by planting landmines disguised as camel poop. Once the Germans realized this, they began running over piles that already had tire tracks over them. In turn, the Allies made mines that looked like overrun camel poop. Described by the media as the world's worst serial killer, Luis Garavito is responsible for the rape and murder of over 100 young boys. After a total of only 22 years served, he will be released from Colombian prison this year. After teenager Amy Billig disappeared in 1974, her mother began receiving phone calls from a man claiming Amy was serving as his slave. The chilling calls continued for more than 20 years, but the case was never solved. In 1933, a doctor named Carl Tanzler raided the grave of a female patient with whom he'd become obsessed before she died. He stole her body from the tomb and lived with her corpse for 7 years. As her body fell apart, he attached the bones together using coat hangers and fitted her face with glass eyes. He was only caught when someone saw him dancing with the corpse in front of an open window. If you ever see a kangaroo standing in the water like this, you should get out of there immediately. He's likely waiting for a pursuer to join him in the water so that he can drown it. It was developed as a defense mechanism against dingoes, but has been performed on innocent household dogs. This skull-faced caterpillar is the larva of the pink underwing moth. It can be found in the rainforests of Australia. This cow escaped from a Polish farm and was found months later living with a herd of wild bison. A few years ago, there was a global search to find a mate for Jeremy, a snail with a rare genetic deformity. Because his shell coiled counterclockwise, the opposite of what's typical for snails, his sex organs couldn't align with any others. 2 candidates were eventually found, but they proceeded to mate with each other instead of poor Jeremy. This is a photo of a New York City police officer coming face to face with a 350-pound tiger that was secretly living in a Harlem apartment. It took more than 6 men to carry the tiger into the elevator while he was sedated. In 1986, a French convict used oranges painted as grenades to escape from prison. He was picked up in a helicopter piloted by his wife, who had been taking flight lessons for months just for the escape. For decades, a female serial killer named the Phantom of Heilbronn was linked to more than 40 crimes. In 2009, it was discovered that she never existed and her DNA was simply contamination from the cotton swabs used at crime scenes. In 2010, 3 burglars thought they had found a stash of cocaine after breaking into a Florida woman's home. They ended up snorting the ashes of a man and his 2 Great Danes. The owner of Ray's Sausages spent nearly $30,000 to combat the foul smell said to be coming from his shop. It was later discovered that the odors were actually coming from the rotting victims of his neighbor, serial killer Anthony Sowell. Replacement teeth were once made from the teeth of dead soldiers after they were scavenged from the battlefield. This is the wreck of the Edmund Fitzgerald sitting at the bottom of Lake Superior. The 700-foot freighter sank in 1975, taking the lives of all 29 men on board. The bodies were never recovered and are said to be well preserved even today due to the cold waters. Since 1946, the Russians believed they had a piece of Hitler's skull, serving as evidence that he died. But in the year 2000, it was discovered that the skull fragment had actually belonged to a middle-aged woman. In late 1864, the brother of John Wilkes Booth was boarding a train when he noticed a man was about to be crushed by the car. So he quickly grabbed the man by the collar and pulled him to safety. The man he'd saved was Robert Lincoln, the son of the president who would be assassinated by John Wilkes Booth just months later. In 1903, a pair of nearly identical strangers named Will West and William West ended up in the same Kansas prison. This case was a big part of the reason why fingerprints are now used for identification. In 2019, a young man named Tyler Moon was running in a Minneapolis marathon when he suddenly collapsed. Thankfully, he was wearing a Jesus Saves running bib since the man behind him was a nurse who performed CPR and saved his life. The nurse's first name was Jesus. In 2016, an Indonesian pop star died on stage after she was bitten by the king cobra she was dancing with. She kept performing for 45 minutes before succumbing to the snake's venom. A German shepherd named Tolero stayed next to the body of his owner for 23 days after he had died in a snowstorm. He prevented animals from attacking the body and tried to keep his owner warm by sleeping by his side. In 1937, a gas leak in the basement of a school in Texas caused a massive explosion that killed 300 children. It was the deadliest school disaster in U.S. history and was so tragic that even Adolf Hitler sent his condolences. In 2012, a British man went into a coma after getting in a bad car accident. When he woke up, he could speak fluent French and genuinely believed that he was Matthew McConaughey. Veterinarians take their own lives at 3 times the rate of the average person. This is partly due to online trolling and threats from pet owners who blame them for the death of a pet. Another reason is that vets can often tell when animals have been abused by their owners, but there's very little that they can do about it. Due to the skin's elasticity, it takes 3 full rotations to remove the human head. In 1847, a doctor performed an amputation so fast that he accidentally amputated his assistant's fingers as well. Both the patient and assistant eventually died from sepsis, while a spectator apparently died from shock. This resulted in the only known procedure with a 300% mortality rate. This incredibly detailed sculpture was created by Antonio Caradini in 1752. It's a depiction of his mother wearing a weightless veil and was carved completely from a block of marble. The incredible dental work on this 4,000-year-old Egyptian mummy shows how advanced they were in the field of dentistry. These taxidermied frogs were found inside of an old French mansion that had been sealed for more than 100 years. It took Italian archaeologist Italo Gismondi 36 years to build this insanely accurate scale model of ancient Rome. This is a photo of archaeologists uncovering a mosaic in Turkey that remained untouched for 2,000 years. These handprints can be found on the walls of Pedikir Cave in Indonesia. This artwork is estimated to be roughly 40,000 years old. This 4,600-year-old Egyptian statue was made completely from wood other than the quartz and copper that make up its eyeballs. It's just one example of the incredible level of craftsmanship achieved during ancient times. These are the first ever drawings of the moon made by Galileo after observing it through his telescope in 1690. Here's a before and after of the excavation of an ancient Greek stadium located in modern-day Turkey. It was built around 1st century AD and once held a capacity of 30,000 people. This is the impressive flexibility of a Swedish Knight Sabaton from 1560. This is a watch that once belonged to a Japanese man named Akito Kawagoe. It's permanently stopped at 8:15 since that was the exact time the atomic bomb was dropped on Hiroshima in 1945. This photo was taken by a paramedic in 2015 outside of a hospital in California. It shows an ER doctor who stepped outside to cry for a moment after losing a 19-year-old patient. Minutes later, he walked back in the building with his head held high and continued on to his next patient. In the 1940s, Mike the Chicken lived for 18 months after his head was axed off. He only died after choking on a kernel of corn. In 2010, Mexican singer Sergio Vega publicly denied a news report that he had been murdered. Hours later, he was murdered. A Massachusetts man named Kenny Waters was wrongly imprisoned for 18 years for murder. He was finally freed in 2001 after his high school dropout sister went to law school to prove his innocence. Just 6 months after he was released, he died in a freak accident. In 2014, Cristiano Ronaldo was asked to donate his cleats for a charity auction. The fundraiser was benefiting a young boy with a rare brain disease that caused up to 30 seizures per day. Instead, Ronaldo donated $83,000 to cover the entire operation and still gave the boy his cleats. Kendrick Castillo was not forgotten by his classmates after he died stopping a Colorado school shooter in 2019. This girl's mother passed away when she was 3 months old, and they don't have any pictures together, so an artist made this for her. On 9/11, more than 500,000 people were left stranded due to the closure of all bridges and tunnels in the city. In an amazing feat called the 9/11 boat lift, citizen boat owners managed to rescue and evacuate all 500,000 people from Manhattan Island. Judith Love Cohen was an American engineer who helped create the guidance system that brought Apollo 13 back home safely. While working on a crucial equation one day, she went into labor but took the problem with her to the hospital. She soon called her boss to tell him that she finished it. Then she gave birth to Jack Black. NASA employs a man named George Aldridge to sniff everything before they send it to space. If George doesn't like the smell, it doesn't go to space. The Kessler syndrome is the theory that a small collision of our satellites could cause a major catastrophe for humanity. The collision could create a cascade where satellites break into tiny pieces and destroy other satellites, until the Earth is surrounded by a massive cloud of flying shrapnel. This would make it impossible to leave the planet for many generations. Here are some of the craziest prehistoric animals that were found frozen in permafrost. In 2007, this amazingly well-preserved woolly rhinoceros carcass was discovered by gold miners in Siberia. It's right around 39,000 years old. The cave lion has been extinct for over 13,000 years, but this one looks like it could have died yesterday. However, this specimen is over 50,000 years old, and scientists say it has great potential for cloning in the future. Lyuba was a 1-month-old woolly mammoth that died around 42,000 years ago. She was found with her skin and organs so well preserved that her mother's milk could still be found in her stomach. Dogor is an 18,000-year-old puppy that was found with his teeth, nose, and whiskers still intact. DNA sequencing has not been able to determine whether Dogor is a wolf or dog, as it's possible that he represents a common ancestor to both. In the year 2000, this man was given a 13-year sentence for armed robbery, but the state of Missouri somehow forgot to put him in prison. They only noticed the error 13 years later when it was time for his release. After being apprehended, he was officially freed when the courts determined he was a changed man. In Brazilian prisons, inmates can shorten their sentences by reading. For every book they read and write a report on, their sentences can be reduced by up to 4 days. The world's most wanted hacker was eventually hacked and arrested because his password was his cat's name plus 123. In 2018, the world's most expensive bottle of vodka was stolen in Denmark. The bottle was made from silver and gold and had a diamond-encrusted cap, making it worth $1.3 million. Miraculously, it was found empty on a construction site just a few days later. This is the 3,200-year-old tomb of Queen Nefertari, and it's often considered the Sistine Chapel of ancient Egypt. The paintings are said to be the best preserved and most detailed decorations of any Egyptian burial site. This was Napoleon's golden sword that was actually used in battle over 200 years ago. It sold at auction in 2007 for $6.4 million. The Orkney hood was found in a Scottish peat bog in 1867. Despite being around 1,500 years old, the garment is still in amazing condition. In the desert landscape of Saudi Arabia, you might stumble upon the Lonely Castle. It was carved out of a single rock nearly 2,000 years ago. This mosaic floor was found by divers near the ancient sunken city of Baia in Naples, Italy. This used to be the floor of an ancient palace in what once was the Las Vegas of ancient Rome. Martin Luther King Jr. was tragically assassinated when he was just 39 years old. However, an autopsy revealed that he had the heart of a 60-year-old, likely due to stress. This is a photo of 2 elephants embracing one last time before being separated for a lifetime of serving man. A deaf man was stabbed and killed in North Carolina just for communicating. He was simply signing to his friend when a local gang member mistook the conversation for gang signs. BBC regularly rehearses the Queen's death to ensure that their cover of it is flawless when she actually does die. 4 people were killed during a Rolling Stones concert in 1969, but the overall population of the concert didn't change. This was because 4 babies were born during the concert as well. In 2004, a baby hippo named Owen was swept away from his mother during a tsunami. He then mistook a 130-year-old tortoise for another hippo, and the two became best friends. Blood Falls is a glacier in Antarctica that pours out red plumes of liquid, making it look like the ice is bleeding. In the 1970s, 2 communities of chimpanzees that were once unified went to war with each other. It lasted 4 years and included many violent fights, murders, and kidnappings. It is the only documented war among chimpanzees in the wild. The dog on the left is an award-winning French bulldog named Arnie. On the right is also a French bulldog, but he was bred in Holland by Hallbuck's Kennel. They're a breeder trying to establish a new, healthier template for French bulldogs. This photo was taken of a group of people who crashed into the Andes in 1972. They were eventually saved but had to resort to cannibalism to survive for nearly 3 months. They're all smiling in the photo, but it becomes quite disturbing when you realize there's a human spine on the ground next to them. When actor-comedian Red Fox was dying of a heart attack while on set, nobody offered to help him. This was because everyone thought it was nothing more than the fake heart attack act he was famous for. When James Bulger went missing in 1993, police became optimistic when they found out he was last seen with children. Sadly, this was a false hope, since the 2 boys who kidnapped James went on to torture him for hours before leaving him for dead on some train tracks. His body was found so horribly mutilated that coroners couldn't even determine how he died. When a woman with breast implants is cremated, the implants will melt into a goo. It then drips to the bottom of the furnace and must be cleaned up once it is cooled. A South African politician used to love his Mercedes so much that his last wish was to be buried while sitting in it. A man was once so angry about losing a knife fight in CSGO that he spent 6 months tracking down his opponent and stabbed him in real life. If you had smallpox scars in the 18th century, you were more likely to get hired. The scars proved that you already had smallpox and couldn't pass it on to your employers. The symptoms of schizophrenia are shaped by culture. Americans with schizophrenia tend to be more paranoid and experience harsher voices and hallucinations. In India and Africa, schizophrenic people tend to hear voices that are more playful and positive. When she was 16 years old, Annalise Michaels started eating her own hands and drinking her own urine while suffering from seizures and delusions. But her devout Christian family denied medical reasoning and instead blamed the devil. She underwent 67 exorcisms and weighed less than 70 pounds at the time of her negligent death. If you're close enough to a nuclear blast, you'll die with no pain because the explosion will kill you faster than your brain can detect pain. This eerie 1986 Twin Towers advertisement speaks for itself. In 1989, a Los Angeles woman received a phone call from her brother-in-law saying that her ex-husband was on his way to kill her. She dialed 911 but was told nothing could be done unless he showed up at her house. Within 15 minutes, he arrived, killing her and 4 other women who were celebrating her 27th birthday. This is a photo of Jason Vukovich smiling at his brother after being sentenced to 28 years in prison. Vukovich tracked down registered sex offenders before assaulting and robbing them. He would then give the money to single mothers that he knew. Both he and his brother were sexually abused as children. This is the cabin of Unabomber Ted Kaczynski when it was held in an FBI storage facility in California. Ted Bundy removed the seat of his Volkswagen Beetle so that his victims couldn't be seen while he was driving. In Chicago 1926, famous piano player Fats Waller was kidnapped by gangsters for 3 days. He feared for his life until finding out that he was the surprise guest at Al Capone's birthday party. When he was found, he was extremely drunk and had earned thousands of dollars in tips from the partygoers. The frilled shark is a species of deep water fish that is rarely seen by humans. Often called a living fossil, the shark is believed to have long been linked to mythical sea serpents. The extremely rare viper dogfish was only discovered in 1986. They're a bioluminescent species of shark and look like something straight out of a horror movie. Only discovered in 1976, the megamouth shark is an extremely rare species of freshwater shark. Less than 100 of them have ever been seen or caught by humans. Known for its protrusible jaw and nail-like teeth, the goblin shark has only been seen about 50 times since its discovery in 1897. The Greenland shark is believed to be the longest living vertebrate animal in the world. They can live up to 400 years old and don't reach puberty until the age of 150. Hagfish are ancient eel-shaped fish that secrete a thick slime when threatened. In 2017, a truck full of them crashed on a highway in Oregon, creating one of the most bizarre traffic jams you'll ever see. A cow from Bangladesh named Rani is the smallest adult cow in the world. He is less than 2 feet tall and only weighs about 60 pounds. The albatross has the largest wingspan of any bird and can fly for years without landing. They spend their first 6 years of life flying over the ocean without ever touching the ground. These claws of the southern cassowary are proof that birds are definitely descendants of dinosaurs. Black ivory is one of the most expensive coffee beans in the world, costing about $500 per pound. It is made from beans that can only be found in elephant poop. An African boy named Ulrich grew up with his legs bent backwards due to a rare condition. That was until a hospital called Africa Mercy performed a free surgery on him and finally gave him the ability to walk. A vet from Australia gave this parrot new prosthetic wings after they were severely trimmed by its former owner. A Russian dog named Shavi was hit by a car and left for dead by the driver. She was saved by a woman named Nina who took her in, nursed her back to health, and found her a new home. Shavi then managed to escape from the home and traveled 200 miles to return to Nina. This homeless man jumped into a river to save his rabbit after she was thrown over a bridge by a passerby. He was then flooded with food donations and job offers as the passerby was charged with animal cruelty. This extremely rare red sprite lightning was captured over Texas last year. This happens when a strong bolt of lightning is positively charged instead of negative. This sprite was estimated to be about 30 miles tall. Jonathan the Tortoise was born in 1832, 5 years before the Victorian era even started. Next year, he will turn 190, making him the oldest known land animal alive today. In 2012, French beekeepers couldn't figure out why their bees were producing blue and green honey inside their hives. That was until they discovered that the bees were visiting a local factory that produces M&Ms. Naked mole rats don't feel pain, can survive 18 minutes without oxygen, and are completely immune to cancer. They're also the only mammals that live in colonies like bees or ants, with one large queen mole rat who gives birth to all the others. A woman snorkeling near Australia noticed this fish was wearing a gold wedding ring. She says she tried to catch it, but it swam away too quickly. A woman from Michigan gave birth on 8808, 9909, and 101010. The odds of this happening were 50 million to 1. A man was photographing a plane crossing over a rainbow when it was struck by lightning at the exact same time. This little girl was born with the exact same white patch of hair as her mother. In 2009, a man was kidnapped in Mexico immediately after giving a lecture on how not to be kidnapped in Mexico. In 1970, a dead sperm whale was blown up with dynamite and chunks of its flesh were launched up to 700 feet away. One of the pieces destroyed a brand new car that was purchased during a promotion called Get a Whale of a Deal. Dolphins love interacting with pregnant women because they communicate using ultrasound. Not only can they hear the mother's heartbeat, but also the baby's, and they find this very fascinating. When mating, flatworms engage in violent penis fencing to determine who will be the father. The winner who stabs the other with its pecker remains a male while the loser becomes a female. Cockroaches find humans so disgusting that if they touch you, they will run away and clean themselves immediately. If a female fox dies, their mate will stay single forever. But if a male fox dies, his widow will search for a new mate immediately. Sharks have survived 4 out of the 5 mass extinction events and have been around for more than 400 million years. This means they're older than dinosaurs, older than trees, and even older than your mom. This is a photo of a stripper posing in front of a judge in 1983. She was displaying that her bikini briefs were too large to expose her cooter to the undercover cops who arrested her. After a meticulous examination by the judge, the case was dismissed. In 2014, a man from Arizona stole a diamond worth $160,000 and traded it for $20 worth of weed. A group of thieves in England posed as mannequins in a department store just before it closed for the night. They then got away with stealing 10,000 pounds in merchandise. Jackie Chan's father was a spy while his mother was an opium dealer. They met through an arrest and fell in love. A python from Australia became addicted to meth after living in a drug lab. Police busted the lab before sending the snake to rehab for 7 months. This graveyard of animal bones was found inside the nest of a harpy eagle. Being the most powerful bird in the Amazon, they prey on species as big as monkeys, sloths, and even deer. Deeper than 30 feet underwater, there's no red light, so blood appears green. About 47 million years ago, whales had legs and lived both on land and in the sea. This is a perfectly camouflaged mossy-tailed gecko, found only in Madagascar. A pike jumped out of the water, likely chasing prey, got stuck in a tree and died. Eventually, a bird came around and built a nest in its mouth. Africa's slowly ripping apart due to continental drift. In 2005, a large crack opened up along fault lines in Ethiopia that will continue to widen. Scientists say this will form an entirely new ocean within the next few million years. During the Vietnam War, a platoon of American soldiers were told to destroy a village that was taken over by the Viet Cong. But instead of aggressors, they found unarmed villagers, most of them women, children, and old men. Acting on initial orders, the soldiers began brutally executing the innocent civilians in broad daylight. After hundreds had been killed, Major Hugh Thompson landed in the area and struggled to figure out what had happened. Upon realizing his fellow American soldiers were responsible, he landed his helicopter between the soldiers and the Vietnamese people. He then told the troops that if they continued the killings, he and his crew would open fire on them. This finally ended the massacre, but Major Thompson was shunned as an American traitor. It wasn't until 1998 that the Army finally acknowledged he had done the right thing. This is a 1974 photo of the terracotta warriors showing their original colors before they rapidly deteriorated. Much of the 2,000-year-old tomb is still unexplored out of fear of damaging the other artifacts in the same way. This is an ancient Roman seaside swimming pool near Livorno, Italy. Archaeologists rediscovered the ancient Egyptian city of Thanis after it was lost to a flood over 1,000 years ago. Much of it remains to be discovered as divers are still finding new treasures from its ruins every year. This astronomical clock in Prague is 600 years old and is still in use today. This is one of the entrances to the medieval St. Edward's Church in England. The breathtaking door is flanked by yew trees that have been growing for 700 years. This is a photo of two parents listening to the heartbeat of their son inside of another man. The son was only 23 years old when he overdosed on opioids, but he saved the life of another man that he never even met. A man buried in snow captured photos of the dog who rescued him, and they're absolutely incredible. The author of Jaws dedicated the last decade of his career to the preservation of sharks. He felt obligated to make up for the fear and misinformation spread by his book. This father, dying of cancer, walked his two daughters down the aisle since he wouldn't get to do it on their wedding days. Even though doctors advised against it, Jimmy Doyle took a fight with Sugar Ray Robinson so that he could buy his mother a house. When Robinson killed him in the ring, he donated his earnings from his next 4 fights to Doyle's mother. This is a World War II photo of a Japanese boy waiting for his turn to cremate his dead baby brother in Nagasaki. Photographer Joe O'Donnell said the boy was biting his lips so hard to avoid crying that it was bleeding. If your lungs were completely opened up and laid flat, they would cover the entire size of a tennis court. When the mummy of Ramses II was transported in 1974, it was issued an Egyptian passport that listed his occupation as deceased king. This 1955 device allowed the user to smoke an entire pack of cigarettes at once. Alzheimer's disease doesn't affect emotional memory as strongly as informational memory. As a result, Alzheimer's patients who are told bad news will often forget the news but will remain sad and have no idea why. A sea sponge and starfish resembling SpongeBob and Patrick were found deep in the Atlantic Ocean. However, this type of starfish is known to prey on sea sponges, so the Patrick-like creature probably had dinner in mind instead of friendship. A Siberian tiger at a zoo in Russia spared the life of a goat that was supposed to be his lunch, and they became best friends. The Silkie is a breed of chicken named for its fluffy feathers that feel like silk. They also make great pets since they're known for their calm and friendly temperament. This animal that looks like a teddy bear is an endangered mammal called the Ili pika. Discovered in 1983 by Li Weidong, they weren't seen for 30 years until Li discovered them again in 2014. It's estimated that there are less than 1,000 of them left in the world. North Korean hospitals are so underfunded that many operations are performed without anesthesia or antibiotics. To make matters worse, the same needles are often used for different patients, so a lot of people exit the hospital in worse shape than when they entered. North Korean law imposes a 3-generation punishment rule. If one person commits a crime, their entire bloodline, including the grandparents, parents, and children, are all sent to prison. When South Korea stopped sending fertilizer to North Korea, the country faced a national shortage. So every year since, citizens have to reach a quota of poop that they must donate to the state. North Koreans are raised to believe that their leaders are gods who can read their thoughts. This, along with extremely limited internet access, make it very difficult for citizens to realize how oppressive their government truly is. After a Chinese construction company caused a reservoir to sink 10 feet, a 600-year-old Buddha carving was uncovered. Underwater archaeologists even found evidence of an ancient temple beneath the 12-foot-tall statue. This 2,000-year-old sapphire ring is believed to have belonged to Caligula, the third emperor of Rome. It includes an engraved portrait of his fourth and final wife, Caesonia. In Switzerland, there's a 500-year-old statue of a man eating a sack of babies, and no one is sure why. 1,600-year-old sling bullets from ancient Rome were found with the words "Take that" inscribed on them. This incredible sculpture from 1783 was carved completely from a block of marble, even including the handkerchief. The world's oldest unopened bottle of wine has remained sealed since the 4th century. It was found in a Roman tomb. The singer of Peanut Butter Jelly Time died after an 11-hour standoff with police in 2002. During the ordeal, his brother-in-law Snoop Dogg attempted to calm him down and convince him to surrender. Your intestines know how to get back in the right place. When performing abdominal surgery and the intestines need to be moved, the doctor will simply stuff them back in. There's a condition called Ondine's curse, which causes sufferers to die if they fall asleep. The only treatment is for patients to wear a ventilator every time they sleep. In 2001, a man donated his kidney to his wife who was suffering from renal failure. 8 years later, when his wife filed for divorce, he demanded her to return the kidney or pay over $1 million. Yasuke was a former African slave who arrived in Japan in 1579. His black skin caused such a sensation that a powerful warlord wished to meet him. They developed a friendship, and Yasuke eventually became the first and only black samurai. In 1971, 17-year-old Julianne Kopka was sucked out of an airplane after it was struck by lightning. She fell 2 miles to the ground, still strapped to her seat, but somehow managed to survive. She then spent the next 11 days alone in the Amazon jungle before being rescued by a logging team. During World War II, Private Thomas Baker was gravely wounded by the Japanese but refused to give up the fight. He told his comrades to leave him propped up against a tree with nothing but a pistol containing 8 bullets. He was later found dead with an empty pistol and the bodies of 8 Japanese soldiers all around him. In 2006, the Miami Hurricanes football team gathered in prayer for their teammate Brian Pata, who had been shot and killed. 15 years later, his teammate Rashawn Jones has been charged with his murder. This is why you should never smash someone's face into a birthday cake without knowing what's inside of it. A Florida lifeguard was fired for saving someone who was drowning because he went outside of his designated area. The executioner from the infamous Vietnam War photo opened a pizza joint in Virginia after the war. When elephants lose a mate, they sometimes refuse to eat and will lie down and shed tears until they starve to death. They're the only animals known to die as a result of heartbreak. In 2001, actor Mark Ruffalo had a vivid dream in which he had a brain tumor. The dream scared him so much that he went to his doctor for a precautionary MRI. Shocking the entire staff, test results showed he had a golf ball-sized mass behind his left ear. A man from India crashed his $700,000 Aston Martin to spare the life of a stray dog. Missouri surgeon Ted Rummel is paralyzed from the waist down, but that doesn't stop him from saving lives. Ginny Burton was a lifelong drug addict with 17 felony convictions on her record. But she eventually managed to turn her life around and graduated from college with high honors at the age of 48. During the Nigerian Civil War, the two sides agreed to a 48-hour ceasefire because Pele was in town for a match. Everyone wanted to be free to watch it without having to worry. Dating back to the early 1700s, the Old Gentleman of Rahe is the oldest diving suit in the world. It was once used to inspect the bottoms of sailing vessels. A 500-year-old church seemed to emerge from a Mexican reservoir after a drought dropped the waterline 80 feet. This 3,400-year-old Egyptian painting palette is so well preserved that it still contains the remnants of color pigments. The Eastern Island heads not only have bodies but also detailed carvings on their surfaces. This carving of a dog appears to be glowing due to people touching it over hundreds of years. This photo shows the incredible detail on Michelangelo's statue of Moses. There's one small muscle on the forearm that's only visible when you lift your pinky. Because Moses is lifting his pinky, the muscle is contracted. Arnold Schwarzenegger has said in many interviews that O.J. Simpson was originally casted to play the Terminator. The main reason he wasn't is that James Cameron didn't think O.J. would be believable as a killer. This is a rare photograph of Ted Bundy having fun with kids in his neighborhood. It serves as a stark reminder of how easily a monstrous person can blend in with society. You can bite off your own finger as easily as you can bite off a carrot, but your brain prevents it. In 2002, a Chechen terrorist attack in a Moscow theater left 130 people dead, but only one of them was killed by terrorists. The other 129 were killed by Russian special forces trying to rescue them. When Sharon Osbourne was sick in bed with cancer and giving up, Ozzy asked Robin Williams to come visit. He randomly hopped in her sick bed and her family went from crying to laughing hysterically. Robin cheered her up so much that she went back to chemo the very next day. In 2018, Salvador Dali's body was exhumed 28 years after his death to resolve a paternity claim. Officials noted that his mustache was still perfectly intact in its classic 10 past 10 position. If you die in Amsterdam with no close relatives, a poet will write a poem for you and recite it at your funeral. A Japanese pilot who bombed a town in Oregon during World War II returned 20 years later to present his family's 400-year-old sword as a symbol of regret. His daughter later said that if he'd received a negative reaction, he would have used the sword to perform a ritual suicide instead. An Indonesian man became an instant millionaire when a meteorite worth $2 million crashed into his home. The rock is an extremely rare variety that is estimated to be around 4.5 billion years old. Vinny the chestnut horse was born with a perfect white shadow of his own body. A married couple was photographed at the exact same time and place in Disney World 15 years before they even met. They weren't even living in the same country when the photo was taken. A dog from Indiana shot his owner in the foot with a shotgun. The name of the dog was Trigger. In 1784, a Japanese seaman sent a message in a bottle saying that his ship had wrecked. 150 years later, it washed up in the village where he was born. Frayne Selak narrowly survived a fatal train crash, plane crash, 2 car explosions, and being hit by a bus. He then went on to win $1 million in the lottery. Arizona man Balbir Singh Sadi was a Sikh who became the victim of a hate crime. He was killed 4 days after 9/11 when a Boeing employee wanted to retaliate for the attacks on the World Trade Center. Sadi is listed on the Arizona State Memorial as a victim of 9/11. If you could harvest every organ and chemical in the human body, you would make around $45 million. This is a 1999 photo of Tom Klebold helping his son Dylan get ready for the Columbine prom. Little did he know, his son would help kill 13 people in the school just 3 days later. In 2015, sex worker Heather Saul shot and killed a man after grabbing his gun while he was trying to rape her. When police arrived to investigate, they found a massive kill kit in the dead man's car. They would later credit Heather with stopping an active serial killer. In 2010, 35-year-old Gurkha soldier Bishnu Shrestha was sleeping on a train when it was hijacked by 40 armed robbers. Eventually, a group of them reached his seat and woke him up with their knives drawn. He was about to give up his belongings until he noticed a woman near him screaming for help since she was about to be raped. So Bishnu pulled out his kukri machete and killed 3 of the men while injuring 8 others. The woman was brought to safety and her parents offered Bishnu a significant cash reward, but he refused. He told them fighting the enemy in battle is my duty as a soldier, but taking on those thugs on the train was my duty as a human being. This is a photo of Louise Bundy on the phone with her son Ted just minutes before he was executed. Until the day she died, she believed he was innocent, as her last words to him were, "You'll always be my precious son." In Mexico, the act of escaping from prison is considered legal because the law recognizes that all people have a natural desire to be free. A second grader was suspended for biting a Pop-Tart into the shape of what school officials thought was a gun. In 2019, a man robbed nearly $8,000 from 2 banks in Israel by carrying an avocado that looked like a grenade. Nigerian print scam emails are intentionally filled with typos to filter out all the skeptical recipients. This minimizes false positives and ensures that time is only being spent on the most gullible people. Seth MacFarlane and Mark Wahlberg were both booked to fly on American Airlines Flight 11, the first plane that crashed into the World Trade Center. Wahlberg decided last minute to fly to Toronto instead, while MacFarlane missed the flight by 10 minutes due to a hangover. Due to technical limitations, video game Deus Ex didn't include the Twin Towers in its skyline. The in-game explanation was that they were destroyed by a terrorist attack. In an episode of Johnny Bravo, there's a poster of a building on fire with the words "Coming Soon." This episode aired in April of 2001, just 5 months before 9/11. In August of 2000, the band Dream Theater recorded a live studio album called Live Scenes from New York. The album cover art features the New York City skyline with the Twin Towers on fire. Most disturbingly, the album was released on September 11, 2001.